Okay, guys, so we are live now.
Thank you. Thank you, Ali. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Soul Show, Season 3, Chapter 8. This is your host, Kavita Kanaparthi. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, based on where you are joining us from. Today, we have our guest, Devika Mittal. She is the regional head of Ava Labs. And Devika has as an extensive background, having worked with companies like Microsoft, LinkedIn, OKX, and also she's also a proud alumna of Wharton and Yale, and she has built an impressive career. It's a proud moment to have her here today with us on the show, and it's my privilege to be hosting her and talking to her about our tireless work and also about what we are doing here in terms of building Web3 and blockchain, and also what excites the viewers and what is required in terms of professional leadership to build what we're building in the infrastructure space. Welcome, Devika. I almost said Eva. Yes, she works for the Avalon chain, and which is one of the fastest, fastest settlements. Is that what Avalanche is, known for, right? Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Devika, would if you mind, if you don't mind, please introduce yourself to the audience. Tell them a little bit more about yourself than I could probably. I've seen the length of the introduction I have for you, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to let her speak for herself.
No, thank you so much, Kavita, and thank you so much for having me on the show. For anybody who's tuning in, thank you for taking the time to listen to us. Really excited for the next hour, and I hope we can probably give you guys some alpha. So, I don't know if I have much to say beyond what Kavita has already said, other than the fact that currently I am the regional head for Ava Labs. For the region, we are super, super, super excited about what people are building in the region in India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, other parts of the region as well. We're really very bullish on what's happening. We're really bullish on blockchain as a tech and on developers, and we're also very bullish on the crypto trading side. So very excited to be here. Very excited to kind of talk about what we're doing here at Avalanche, what's happening in our gaming side, what's happening with AI and blockchain. And yeah, there's not much else that I'd want to say about my intro beyond what Kavita has already so graciously said.
Oh, there's a lot more, Devika. Maybe I'll start giving a little peek, and I will also talk about it. The most important thing is the leadership, right? We are talking about the evolution of all of us, mostly from Web 2 to Web 3. What's transitioning from enterprise technologies to Web 3 landscape looks like. You have also worked in Microsoft, and other things before you came on to the Web 3, Web 3 scenes. Well, how has the transition been in terms of leadership in Web 2 and the leadership in Web 3, and what it means to what we all are doing and what we're trying to promote the technologies to be, and how is it shaping the infrastructure in the that based on blockchain technologies?
So I think something that I see in Web3 that really draws me to the industry and the ecosystems is the fact that um, traditional kind of Web2, of course, it's everywhere, and of course, there's companies that have done well everywhere. But at the same time, there were clusters of power, so to speak.
Right. Yeah.
And there were clusters of kind of where innovation was coming from, and that was often in the West. And
Right.
places like India were often delegated to the back end offices. Of course, that was changing. Of course, there are unicorns. There's no hard and fast rules here. But I'm just saying generally trends that you see. Something that I see in Web3 is, there is no nexus of power in
Mhm.
terms of
Yeah.
geographies. And there is no
Mhm.
nexus of power in terms of the kinds of people who are building, the kinds of people who are getting funded, the kinds of projects that are seeing traction. And I think that's
Mhm.
something that's really interesting and powerful, right? Of course, there is the VC network. Of course, there is institutional funding. But because of the way that the industry works and because of how you can do crowdsourcing, you can have an ICO, the ways that capital is flowing is completely different, in some ways very equalizing.
Mhm. Yeah. Absolutely. The challenges that we have faced, I think most of the companies have faced, like you talked about, um, the centers of power, so to speak, right? And they are still influencing, what we are doing in Web3 space as well. While Web3 and blockchain technologies are, evolving independently of most of the, I would say, the biggest companies, they're actually are thriving independently, and not because of them, actually despite them. There is a big change in the way we see it. And what has been the biggest challenge that you see so far, and or maybe ongoingly, that blockchain, the headwinds that you may see for the development of blockchain tech, and also Web3 space, the building of the Web3 space?
So I guess it's the question, what are the headwinds that we see coming for the industry in the next year?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
So,
yes, of course. Yeah.
so that's an interesting question. I think we're actually kind of at an inflection point where, blockchain is getting a lot more adoption. So whether you're seeing that in the US government side, right, there's all of this talk about Bitcoin becoming part of the Federal Reserve, whether it's on the institutional side, just other large institutions and enterprises holding, Bitcoin tokens. Just today, an Avalanche ETF was registered by Nike. So, I would almost say it's finally the time where there are fewer headwinds, and the industry has just been facing headwinds for the last 10 years. So, of course, I think regulatory clarity or lack of clarity thereof might be considered a headwind for the next year or so. But I would really say maybe now is the time for the industry to grow.
That's good to hear. So my next question was about, what's the Avalanche is the most, what's happening at Avalanche, and thank you for sharing that Avalanche's ETF has been registered today. Congratulations as a team. I'm sure you guys are overjoyed. And what does it mean, for the Avalanche's growth, and what does it mean for the industry at large?
So I think what this means is, more broadly speaking, blockchain tokens such as Avalanche really become, akin to more standard, instruments that people hold and large
Mhm.
institutions hold. So, just by getting an ETF, what does this say? One, it says, we are bullish on the ecosystem, on the technology, on the blockchain, and what is being built on Avalanche. And the second thing that this says is, we're no longer, playing house, or, we never were, but other people might have thought we were. But really, this is tech that's here to stay. This is a team that's here to stay. This is a token, and, in the future, an ETF asset that's here to stay.
That's good to hear. Absolutely, and I've been following Eva as being in the tech field, and also I'm keenly interested in what's happening there, because we are deploying on multiple chains as Solverse. We are trying to make it interoperable with different chains, different ledgers on the crypto side, and also on the the credential side. So, what is the latest technical innovation that Avalanche has put out recently? Both in the infrastructure design and technical excellence.
So again, I think there's so much here to talk about, but I think the biggest thing that I'll talk about, which is the most applicable, broadly speaking, is what we call L1s. So earlier they used to be called subnets, but that was a very deceiving name, because subnets kind of imply that they were sub networks of the Avalanche C, which is our public chain. But really, the vision here that that the blockchain is trying to kind of build, right, and the Avalanche ecosystem is trying to build, and the community is trying to build, is that there will be a entire network of layer ones that are all interoperable natively, that all talk to each other. The tokens can be interoperable, but they all exist independently. So this is super powerful, right? Because if you think about it, a financial institution has different needs from their layer one or from their blockchain than a gaming company, right, which has a very different need than a DeFi platform. Which is a very different need than a government agency. So, can you build, or even within gaming companies, different gaming companies might have different needs for how they use their blockchain. So, I think what's really revolutionary here is, the first generation of blockchain was just single asset, single chain. The second generation of assets were single chain like Ethereum, but multiple assets, right? So multiple ERC20 tokens. And now we're at this kind of third evolution and revolution in blockchain where, L1s really allow you to have multiple chains and multiple assets, and really kind of customize what you want in a way that is not just for gaming or not just for DeFi or any specific niche, but can be modular to what you need. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I would see, and I would think Avalanche really is kind of a market leader in. Of course, from a technical standpoint, there's no competing with Avalanche here, right? As you mentioned rightly, fastest, largest transactions per second, shortest, time to finality. And again, we've never really had any major, touch wood, we've never really had any major crashes, any major hacks. Things on us just work, and we're really less marketing, more delivering. So whether that's building out Hyper SDKs, whether that's building out the L1s, we're really being able to deliver on what we promise, which I think is refreshing.
That's great to hear. What is the biggest challenge that probably L1s face in terms of, like you mentioned, multiple companies, I would say multiple industries have multiple requirements. Let's say the banking industry has requires it to be more robust, more fast, more transaction heavy. Settlement needs to be quicker, and all of that. Maybe the gaming in the industry requires not so the speed is not the game. Pun intended, but they may require it to be more NFT friendly, all of those things, and jumping between different environments, moving the assets around, and all those things. And maybe the government requires it to be a private chain, permission chain. So all of these things, as you speak rightly, how is Avalanche handling it in terms of are you focusing on mission-based deliveries, or are you focusing on one team? The kind of how are you doing it? And let's just get into that first. Yeah.
Sorry, is the question, how are we building
delivery happening in terms of for different industries? Let's say how's delivery? You said that delivery is fast and hard and fast, right? So how is that actually happening? The Hyper SDKs, do you have, is it developer friendly, developer heavy, or are you doing it in-house, and how is that happening?
So again, this totally depends on what you're building. So if you're building it in an L1 instead of on C chain, right? As I said, building your own L1 is fully modular. So if you want it to be permissioned or permissionless, you can do that. If you want it to be public or private, you can do that. You want to have your own token, you can do that. If you want to, abstract away the gas token and have a gas-free layer, you can do that. And, beyond that, to your point of how is it easy or difficult for the developers, we have organizations and we have tools that make it really easy. So if you want to have a managed L1 and a managed service, Ava Labs has a platform called Ava Cloud that you can use, which provides a managed service for your L1. So they manage your nodes, your validator nodes. They manage it. It's a one-click launch for your L1, and the developer, our developers are there to help you. If you want to build on C chain, we have a very strong global DevRel team that helps all the developers with their questions. So it really depends on what it is that you're building. And I think that's what makes it really, as I said, powerful, that you can choose whatever it is that you want to build, and it's there for you.
Okay. So actually, yeah, sorry. My question was that, is it being supported by your internal development team, or the developers themselves have access to your GitHubs, and are supported by the DevRels and all of that?
So Avalanche itself is an open source blockchain, and there are developers who are contributing to it across the world. Within Ava Labs itself, we do have a DevRel team that supports developers, as well as a team with Ava Cloud. So if you are building an L1, Ava Cloud also jumps in addition to our DevRel team.
Great. So how is the integration of, over a period of time, we still have a lot of Web2 games. I think Web3 gaming system is still developing. It's we still consider it as more of a a larger gaming ecosystem, we look at it as in integrating blockchain slowly and steadily. But how has it been, the integration of blockchain technology into the gaming ecosystems?
So, so blockchain tech is a really interesting tool, right? When you think about gaming. So back in
Mhm.
2017, when I was at Microsoft, back then, we were thinking, well, we didn't have the lingo for it then, right? We didn't have
Okay.
NFTs and in-game assets, but we were thinking, what if there were games on, on the Xbox, and all of these swords that you get and all these skins that you get. What if you could trade them, and what if you could monetize them? And at that point in 2017, it was just a crazy idea because it just didn't
Mhm.
exist. But now, what you're seeing, whether that's Off the Grid or whether that's Maple Story Universe or any of the major games that have launched on Avalanche, blockchain is a very, very powerful tool on both the back end for the developers as well as on
Mhm.
the front end for the users. So on the back end for the developers, can you access really like good data, really clean data about your users? Can you attribute certain kinds of criteria or certain kinds of behaviors to your users in a clean way? Can you target your users in a better way, right, with the right kinds of incentives, with the right kinds of assets, with the right kinds of tools? And on the front end, now you can really monetize your time. You can trade your assets. You can kind of play a game that you want to play with the products that you want to play. So I think that's what you're seeing. And I think earlier on, I think tokenomics is something that people are still trying to figure out.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a work in progress. I think even if you look at the regular Web2 world, I don't know if anyone has really ever really nailed the financial side of gaming, even
Mhm.
on the Web2 side. Well, maybe they have more than Web3, but I think Web3 is still kind of a work in progress. But at least on
Mhm.
the tech side, I think what you're seeing is a lot of major adoption, especially now with Web3 AAA games coming. So Off the Grid, they didn't even announce that they were on blockchain when they launched. Because they just wanted people to watch and play it as a Web2 game and kind of adopt it, even if they were not the typical kind of crypto native users.
Yeah. I think that is happening quite a bit, especially because people don't yet completely understand NFTs as being true in financial instruments that can be exchanged, sold, traded, and all of that. And interestingly, my whole journey in this did start with tokenization of particularly the gaming assets, and not having found the ID that I would like to use to move between different games and carry my assets, and tie my assets to a certain ID, the way I wanted it to, and put them into a singular wallet. While I am actually moving around with the same ID, and the assets are also linked to the same ID. That's how Solverse came about as well. That's an interesting thing that at large, in the larger sense of things, a lot of people were thinking about it, and we were all working in silo at the time. The ideation has been there. Uh, we are also all looking at the Web2 games are still very, very prevalent, and the blockchain technologies are, as long as you have assets, we have the requirement for the blockchain technologies most of the time. But the technical frameworks for gaming implementation and all of that, how robust are they at this time?
So, the technical frameworks are extremely robust if you go to the right blockchain. I think
Mhm.
I think what happens in the industry, and this is true for any industry, including Web2, is if you're going for the fledgling players, or you're going for the players that are not battle tested, maybe it's not a very robust ecosystem there. Maybe the tech is not extremely robust. It's not battle tested. But when you come to something like Avalanche,
Mhm.
which is being trusted by California DMV to host more than 52 million car title ownership data records, right? Is being,
Mhm.
is being trusted by the government of Chhattisgarh, by the government of Karnataka. It's being trusted by KKR. I think you can be rest assured that the technical frameworks exist for your queries. Of
Mhm.
course, there are still limits to what blockchain can achieve so far, but that changes every day. And I think the industry moves so quickly that it pivots so quickly in terms of industries, in terms of focus areas, in terms of capabilities, that what isn't true today might be true tomorrow.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. Given that Avalanche has been focusing on on so many multiple things, and it is developer friendly, and you're also working with the governments and extensively, and also assets are being deployed on Avalanche's chain. Has Avalanche thought about deploying a DID on the Avalanche chain?
You mean decentralized identity?
ID, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, of course, there are use cases that are being built on around decentralized identity on Avalanche,
Hmm.
and I think nothing. Uh, for example, in Karnataka, actually, if you look at it, the use case which is being launched and the POC is complete, the full scale implementation is launching now. Is senior citizen identity information, so that they can
Hmm.
make sure that there's no fraud and the right senior citizens are getting their benefits. So
Hmm.
so it is live. There are multiple examples of this. This is the first one that comes to mind and the most recent one that comes to mind from the region. But it's a decentralized world. It's a decentralized network, so there are lots of different use cases across the world that are building on it.
That's good to hear. That's something that now we would like to collaborate maybe at some point. What is, we're also, as every time we talk about, people are, of blockchain, and especially in the venture capital world, everybody wants to talk about, are you working with AI? What is your take on, the intersection of AI and blockchain?
So I think AI and blockchain, I think at the face of it, you might think it's one or two buzzwords put together, but I think that the confluence of AI and blockchain makes a lot of sense here. So
Hmm.
when you're looking at the kind of data that you can be storing on your blockchain, right? When you're looking at the kind of, especially on a B2B use case, for example, or even gaming, right?
Hmm.
There's two ways of looking at it. One is, can AI make this better? Can AI work on the back end to create, AI agents to scrape the data, right? Can we do something? Can we do something with all of this information that we're collecting, that we're putting on the blockchain, which is immutable? On the other hand, I think AI is a really interesting way of actually democratizing further blockchain. So can you
Hmm.
build AI agents on blockchain that let people do what they earlier couldn't do if they didn't have the coding skills? So can you allow a normal user to write in plain English and build like a blockchain and launch it in 5 minutes? Can you have AI agents that allow users who have games, for example, to build certain functionality that they otherwise wouldn't be able to build, to scrape data in a way that they wouldn't be able to do. So what we're seeing is a lots and lots of use cases with AI agents kind of coming up on blockchain, and I would say that it's absolutely here to stay and it makes sense.
Absolutely. That's one thing that we wanted to talk about as well. In terms of the coding, right? I remember that one of the POCs that we worked with, recently, the gentleman didn't have much of the coding skills, and I mean, in sense of he hasn't coded in a while and is more on to the administration side. And we wanted to put a POC together, and we realized that some of the code had come from help from AI and different tools that he just plainly wrote in plain English, and but it was so well done that it is hard to tell whether it was plain coded or it was AI generated, right? It is moving fast, and we built on that code, and it came out so well that that was the first time we did that, in terms of using some of the code that we were writing um, for a POC, and it is very interesting to see how uh, the threat of people feeling that the coders, the developers are going to become irrelevant at some point. Um, what do you think is going to happen? At the end of the day, the logic still needs to exist. At the end of the day, whatever the AI agent is actually working on is got to be a historical pipeline for it, right? What do you think is going to happen in a few years down the road? Are developers really going to be non-existent? Are we going to have that kind of AI capabilities that everybody's just going to be able to do away with developers at the base level, or do we still require the AI models to be trained by the developers? Is the shift is going to be this way or the other way?
I do think that developers will be less important than they are right now. And I do think that coding will become more commoditized as a skill than it is right now. So right now, when you look at it, I think being a computer science developer and being a coder is one of the hottest skills you can have in the market, and one of
Right.
the most sought after, especially in the blockchain industry, right? So being a blockchain engineer, like there's very few good ones, and if you are, it's super sought after. And I think that as AI models get better, and as we get closer to AI models being able to write really good blockchains, I do think it'll become more commoditized. But I also think that means, on the converse, very, very good blockchain developers will become even more sought after, because they're the ones sanity checking everything. So I think there'll be fewer people being hired by each team, but I think I think the demands on those engineers will skyrocket.
I think that's how people are listening, and know what what the skills they need to develop going forward. As we see, as a shift happens in every technology, we're going to see a shift in the skills that we need to acquire. And as I see today, as somebody who's working, developing products and stuff like that, it is very difficult to find developers who are thinking out of the box, right? And if that shift is not going to happen, and they are going to become the most fast irrelevant people in the industry. And I hope people are listening and people are understanding what they need to acquire as skills going forward. Let's also talk about a little bit of how Avalanche is integrating AI.
So again, Avalanche, we're a layer one blockchain. So I think what we're doing is we're leaving, we're hoping that developers are building on us, and we're hoping that developers are building use cases that integrate AI. But as a product ourselves, we're the layer one that you build on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So what's going to happen with the regulatory landscape, as we move forward? We're seeing more and more countries leaning towards blockchain technologies. And earlier, the joke was that, blockchain is awesome, crypto is bad, but people are understanding now, with more and more banks taking cognizance of how crypto can enable their own operations for settlements across, cross border, transfers being more efficient and faster, and probably less risky when you're looking at larger, transactions and things like that. How do you see the whole thing being shaping up in over a period of time in terms of the crypto landscape, the regulatory landscape for cryptos?
So as you can see in the US, in the Gensler era, there was a lot of pushback on crypto. Not blockchain maybe, but more on crypto and crypto assets and crypto trading. And I think it was kind of almost a war on crypto, so to speak. And I think now in the post-election Trump era, you are seeing news that Bitcoin might be part of the Federal Reserves. The ETFs, multiple ETFs are launching and being registered. Large institutions are starting to hold reserves of not just Bitcoin, but other blockchain tokens as well. So I think that what you see is, a lot of countries look to the US for clues on how to deal with large shifts in technology and policy. And I think that now that you're seeing a very favorable twist and lens through which the US is looking at crypto, I think what you'll see is in the next year or year and a half, you'll also see more favorable and clear policies the world over. Or at least I think that's our wishful thinking, right?
Okay. Europe has actually has progressed in leaps and bounds. In US and particularly India also are still finding their feet in terms of regulations, in terms of a clarity on how they would tax crypto, how especially if you're going to tax them 30% for every transaction they make, because somehow you look at it as gains, in money that you're supposed to receive as as a settlement, right? So all of those things need more clarity as we go forward for the adoption to happen. And without crypto, I would say blockchain technologies are not going to grow in leaps and bounds, because every time you turn around, you want to hold a transaction, there is some kind of monetary settlement that needs to happen, unless it's just the credentials that you're issuing and nothing else. So whether it's gaming, whether it is the financial industry, whether it is logistics, whether it is shipment, whether it's healthcare, anytime you're looking at a transaction, there is some kind of monetary settlement there. And if you want,
That's not necessarily true. I think it depends on what kind of blockchain you're building.
When I'm saying transactions, especially, right? Let's say I go to a hospital and I share my medical records, and I need to pay for my for the fee that I need to pay there, and there's a transaction there, right? So, and how do you tax that? How do you handle the transactions value and all of those things? So regulations absolutely need to fit into the model of the transactions, not the other way around, is what I'm looking at. Right. So moving on, I wanted to understand a little bit about the future trends in the women empowerment, or I'm a little against the word empowerment because we don't need to be empowered. But what do you think about the women in Web3 leadership?
I think, I think we're here. I think you're here and I'm here. And I think I see a lot of women in positions of power. My boss is a woman. And, I see a lot of opportunities opening up for women in blockchain. And of course, I do think there's a gap. And I think there's always going to be a gap. And that's true for all industries. And I'm waiting for the day that, the employment ratios are 50-50. In tech, but I do think that we're kind of far away from that. But at the same time, I do think that we're doing better than other industries, maybe.
Absolutely, and that's something that I've noticed. There are more women in Web3 than in the general tech space that we see. Way back when I started in the tech industry, women in tech were fewer, and especially women in tech in the networking field were, far and few in between. But in Web3, I'm mostly talking to women, and especially in the leadership roles. Everywhere I go, I see Web3 women leadership, women developers, women innovators. So to speak, our own blockchain architect is a woman who leads the entire team. So it's been great to see the shifts in the way the tech leadership in Web3 has, I would say, the ratio has been much, much better. And absolutely. And I have actually had more women guests on the show than men.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting too. And every time I request my producer Ali Mastan to go look for somebody who is in this particular space, and he ends up finding a woman, and he's like, this is the best person I get, more qualified than. And it makes me proud to think, that we're doing much, much better in the space, and the innovation has been enormous, and leadership has been awesome as well. Well, I come to a crossroad here right now. I will be doing a rapid fire question, a segment. Also, I have a few more than I usually do. That's because, owing to your expertise, I have a few more questions. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Okay. This should take probably a quick minute. Blockchain or AI, which excites you more?
Blockchain.
Why is it so?
That's not a rapid fire if you're asking me why.
No, and I wanted to expand on that a little bit.
Again,
Okay.
I think blockchain is, it's the industry that I work in. I think it's fundamentally changing the way that we think about data, the way that we store data, the way that we democratize access to data. And so much of AI can be built on blockchain too. So it's really at the core of everything.
Fantastic. What do you think is the most overhyped blockchain trend?
Deepen.
Okay. I can probably agree on that. What's the most essential skill for a Web3 leader?
Research and openness.
Absolutely. What do you think is the next big thing in Web3 gaming?
Tokenomics that work.
Bang on. What's the biggest challenge for women in Web3 tech? I
Um,
say
you know, being able to speak the language, right, and
true
learn the
that.
lingo.
True that. But why is it a challenge though? So I'm gonna just expand a little bit on that. Why would it be a challenge? And are we really facing that challenge?
Absolutely. I think, when you look at traditional industries as well, like financial industries such as, sales and trading. I interned at a sales and trading desk one summer when I was in college. And I
Hmm.
remember, when you look at the lingo, it's very complicated, right? Put, spread, collar, butterfly, yebo. It's meant to make you feel like there's so much you don't know, and you need
Hmm.
somebody else to do the job. And it keeps people out of the room, and often I feel uh, for whatever reason, it can keep some women out of the room because you can feel like it's a boys club and you don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
Similarly, I think sometimes blockchain, the ecosystem can have a lot of lingo, whether that's a WAGMI or Dior or even GM. Like, and again, none of these are actually complicated if you look at it, but I think
Yeah.
creating a lingo for an industry can make outsiders feel like they don't belong. And often,
Hmm.
if you don't have a mentor or somebody who's a woman in the industry, other women may not feel like they're welcome. So that's why I think learning that lingo is important.
Absolutely, and glad I asked you that question. To explain that a little bit more, especially because I have faced that too. And when I'm explaining the product to somebody or I'm explaining something to somebody, I've had to use a lot of analogies, right? Let's say you just said DPIN, and we just talked about, we could be saying DeFi, we could be talking about assets, we could be talking about NFTs. As simple as an NFT today, I had to explain what an NFT was to somebody I was explaining the Soul versus wallet, that it holds NFTs. It can actually be economic model for somebody, for the industry, for the content industry, especially how it was going to create economy around the whole thing. This is very important that a good a thorough education on the lingo just demystifies the whole concept of blockchain and Web3. Thank you for that. What's your favorite Web3 meme and why?
I think there's one which is the horse, which is like from white paper to actual launch. And the white paper, it's a really well drawn part of a horse, and as it gets to launch, it becomes more and more simple and basic. So it kind of shows how sometimes like what is promised isn't always delivered. And I think it's very true for the industry.
Fantastic. Describe AI's impact on the world in one word.
Generative.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay. We'll go with that. If you could instantly solve one technical challenge in blockchain, what would it be?
Increasing transactions per second.
How we would love that. When will India reach mainstream Web3 adoption? 2 years, 5 years, maybe longer?
I think maybe 3 years.
Okay. All right. Somewhere in between. Share your life's motto in 3 words.
Uh, just show up.
Okay. Wow. Okay. That was succinctly put. To show up and learn the lingo. And we'll
Exactly.
just add to that, learn the lingo. Absolutely. That has, I think this has been the most interesting rapid fire, and most exciting and insightful rapid fire section that I've had. Um, just to kind of change it up a little bit, do you have anything that you want to know about how a decentralized identity works in the general world? Something that I wanted to ask the viewers if they have any questions. Ava is, not Ava, Devika is here. Devika is here from the Avalanche Avalanche chain, and great things we're hearing about what they're doing, how they are building, how they are working with the developers. If there are any developers in the viewers, if you want to have any questions or any particular use case or in industry specifically, Devika, could you, for the sake of the developers out there, if they want to reach out to you guys, and what are the most, I would say, effective use cases that are being built on the Avalanche chain?
I hate to say something that's so generic, but I think there are uh, strong use cases being built in any industry on Avalanche if they're being built on blockchain. So you have gaming, you have financial services, you have management, you have supply chain, you have um, energy efficiency, you have invoicing, you have trade financing. It's kind of all over the place, and I think it's really about, can you find a market need, can you fill that gap, can you find product market fit, and then you can build on Avalanche. And I think we're absolutely here for anybody who wants to build in blockchain.
Okay. How is your presence in India at this time? Where are you guys situated? And, if somebody wants to reach out to you guys, whether it is to build a use case, whether it is to, request a certain chain to be deployed, how can they reach you?
So we do have team members who are in India. So we have a BD members in Bangalore. We have DevRel as well. That's global. We have engineers in India as well. We're a global team. So I think if you want to talk to any of us, please talk to any of us on Twitter. Talk to us on Telegram. We have AVAX Telegrams. We have the Twitter. We have LinkedIn. We have so many different ways for you to reach out. And if you want to reach out to me, please message me on Telegram. And my Telegram is at DEVIKAMI. So at DEVIKAMI. I'm always available. Please reach out to me.
Okay. Somebody's asking for link. Okay. So we'll give it to you and wait to reach her. She's also, on LinkedIn, and, you can reach out to her. Devika Mittal, just look up Avalanche Devika Mittal, you'll absolutely find her, but we'll also put them on our social media channels. You can reach out to her. We have tagged her a few times, so she's there on Solverse's social media channels. And okay, so there's one question, the couple of questions actually, audience questions. Let's take a few of them. I noticed that a district in India recently digitized over 700,000 land records using Avalanche blockchain. Okay, could you share more insights about this implementation and how it helps? Let's talk about it in general, not so much as India specifically, because you are working across the globe. In terms of the land records, what are the challenges that Avalanche has been able to solve?
So, think about typically, right? If you have a land record, or you are in Dantewada, for example, in this use case, and you have land, right? And you own this land, and you have a piece of paper that says you own this land. And then somebody else comes and says they own this land. And or your record isn't there because it's ancestral land and you have no way to prove that you own this land, right? Or there is not just ownership, right? But there's data around where the public infrastructure is, where the piping is. There's so much information around land that exists, which A, is not accessible to people, and B, is prone to fraud. So what does putting all of that data on blockchain, on Avalanche do, right? That says, hey, what you own now and the data that you have is immutable, right? Your ownership data specifically, for example, is immutable. What you what you have now, like, nobody can change it. So, gone are, at least for Dantewada, gone is the day where you have to hopefully pay somebody to even get your document, right, that you own this piece of land, or somebody just harpos it from you, for example, and next thing you know, like, your tenant is saying that they own the land, but even if they don't. So think about kind of what having land records on blockchain does. And what it does is it really streamlines the entire process. It tells you that your data is yours, A. B, nobody can mess with it, and C, like, it's out there in the public realm, or at least in the government realm, that if it needs to change, you will see who changed it and how. So it creates traceability for something that historically has not had traceability and trackability.
That brings us to the question, it's a little deeper in terms of, what probably on the government's role in this particular, when we're, putting the land records on paper, on the blockchain. Are they working only with the records that already exist and are clear, have a clear title? or are they also going towards solving the issues that, let's say there's a land dispute and there's no record at all? How about are they working with those as well, or are they working only with the clear titles at this time?
So I think for the exact information on the disputes, I will actually have to get back at you, because we again are the blockchain that the data was
Yes, of
stored on.
course.
We're not
Yeah.
the implementation team that did it. So the implementation team, I'd give a huge shout out to Zappa Labs that are in the
Mhm.
weeds, that are working with the government, that are the team that's actually put all of this data on chain. I think
Mhm.
from my understanding, it's all
Mhm.
records,
Okay.
including disputed records. But I will have to check with Neil just one more time so that I'm making sure that I'm correct on that.
Okay, absolutely. So we'll get back to
So,
you, and maybe you
yeah,
can put it
so
on. Yeah.
yeah, for example, I was going to say it's mutation logs, plot registries, ownership details, cadastral
Yeah.
maps, recursive rights. So I do believe that includes all of this disputed land as well.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but again, I'll check in and I'll let you know.
Right. Absolutely. Because the data becomes immutable and the record becomes immutable, so once it's on the blockchain, the ownership is established, right? So we want to make sure that all of the different legal or different departments within the government itself are working together, right? And so we do want to talk about that eventually, because people are going to be interested in exactly how end to end the blockchain is able to solve most of the major problems that exist today. We have one more question, to Devika. What are the biggest regulatory or infrastructural barriers to blockchain adoption in these regions? I would say I think they're talking about the Asia Pacific regions.
I think the biggest blocker is, I think you answered that in your question itself, which is regulatory, lack of clarity. So if I want to create RWAs for land and I'm not Dantewada district, I'm an actual private enterprise, can I do that? Can I sell land as an RWA? Can I sell um, tokens of other assets? Can I trade certain assets in certain ways? Can I, I think there's the barrier to adoption is the regulation itself. And I think once you have clear regulation, I think you will see a lot of adoption. I have this amazing story where I was at a small store in Jaipur, and one of the employees of the store, it's a very small store in a small part of like a in a regular like local store, and one of the employees there was telling me that he puts part of his salary every month in crypto, and he buys tokens on one of the Indian regulated exchanges. So very few people are doing, I mean, there's a lot of traders, but as a percentage of Indian population, I think we have ways to go. And I think once there's clearer regulation and adoption, I think you'll see those numbers blow up.
Absolutely. Especially in terms of, let's, if we even talk about the two questions that we have had just now, right? We have land records on chain. And am I going to be able to sell my land, tomorrow to somebody on the blockchain? And that needs to happen as a token rather than, as the data transfer needs to happen. And, the next ownership needs to be able to claim that token and all of that. But at this time, right now, that regulatory framework is up in the air. We don't know whether we are putting the land records on the chain, and then what, right? So are we going to go to the point where you go back to the registration office, you register, you buy the land from somebody whose data is on the blockchain, you go to the registration in the registry office, and then they update the records on the blockchain as the next whatever it is. And they, I mean, when I say put them on blockchain, they record the transaction on the blockchain. And is that those, that is again is not solving anything much, right? You still have to, the time, the energy, the cost. Again, you're not bringing anything down. The efficiency is not, changing at the end of the day. So those questions, I think are going to take a little bit longer to, to be resolved or to be answered. Even for us, we are all, I would say, sitting ducks trying to innovate something at the end of the day, and doing our best to make it happen. As adoption happens, there are a lot of questions that need to be answered. We are encouraging content to be tokenized, But tokens, again, when you trade them, there is a cost to it. So if I want to sell my content to somebody, and what's going to happen? Are they going to be ending up paying 30% because crypto has a certain 30% tax? Is it going to be looked at as gain? However, fractionalized tokens, how are they going to, because they're going to be considered as securities, or is going to be the regulatory factor on that front? So there's a lot of confusion that, the more questions than we have answers for at this time. But thank you for, in general, clarifying a lot of things. And I love the rapid fire, the section today. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and thank you for having, for making time to come and talk to us. For anybody who is looking to talk to Devika, we'll put out the social media links for her. Unless we have any more questions, I think we'll wrap it up here today. And thank you so much, Devika, for coming and talking to us. Is there anything else in general, before we wrap it up, for the younger generation? And you being a leader at such a young age is very, very inspiring to a lot of people. And I keep trying to tell people that it doesn't matter how young or old you are in this, especially in the Web3 space, you can find your niche. What would you tell them in terms of what they would need to learn, what they need to look for, and how they would need to go about doing their best to deliver in this space?
Yeah, absolutely. I would just say keep building, right? I think we still need the coders so far. I don't think AI has replaced all the coders yet. So we want you guys to be building in the space. We want you to be innovating. We want you to be testing. If you're excited about blockchain, please come to Avalanche. Reach out to me, reach out to the team. I think Kavita said they'll share our details. So please, please, please message us, and we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Devika. And thank you, viewers, and thank you for your questions. There were, I think there was an extended question in the land records part, how they're securing on Avalanche and blockchain, and it ensures transparency. Thank you for, the questions as well. And, we'll see you back in the next chapter. I think we're going to bring Devika back one more time. Pardon me for my, took me a little time today to get back into the groove. I've had a long 10 days and I've been traveling, and it took me a little time to get back and get into the groove today to ask you the questions. But thank you for being here, Devika, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you, viewers, for your questions, for your time, for dialing in. And the recorded session will be on our social media channels, and we'll also share them, share Devika's details on the channels as well. Thank you. Thanks. And let me